So let's take a look at the rankings. Colorado at 25, San Jose State at 24. They're going to play for a Mountain West championship against Boise State at 6-0. Tulsa's at number 23, North Carolina State is at 22, and Oklahoma State is at 21. Wild interesting in that we have 3 lost teams ranked ahead of an undefeated team. San Jose State could win the Mountain West against Boise State and probably still not crack the top 15. Texas is still here at number 20. Louisiana at 19, 9-1. They're going to play for the Sun Belt Conference Championship against Coastal Carolina later this week. Miami at number 18 after a loss, big loss to UNC. BYU at 17 and Iowa at 16. BYU moves up 2 spots with a win against San Diego State. Miami falls 8 spots with its 62-28, I believe the score was, destroying at the hands of North Carolina. Make sure I get that score correct. I'm just so focused on the 62 points and the 554-yard rushing UNC put up on Miami that it's really difficult for me to pay attention or even care what Miami scored in that game if it wasn't close, and it wasn't, right? It was out of hand quick, and it was out of hand cleanly, saying a lot about what UNC might be, and we know that now they're a top 15 with 3 losses. That's going to be interesting. I think that's worthwhile. UNC at number 15, check that out, 8-3. Northwestern at number 14, 6-1. USC at number 13 is 5-0. Coastal Carolina is 11-0 at 12. Golly, just 1 spot for them after the come-from-behind victory against Troy, who I believe was 5-5 at the time. Indiana at 6-1, number 11, without the starting quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. Jack Tuttle seems to be pretty good, if not a worthy enough replacement. We'll see what that means for them going into what we hope to be a final game for them, as Michigan and Iowa has been called off, and Purdue and who they were playing got called off as well. Might have been Indiana, come to think of it. Got to check that out, man, because last time we took a look at this, so much has happened since the last time that we actually got to talk about rankings and we got to talk about what's next and who gets to do what. USC versus Oregon, the Pac-12 championship. The Pac-12 is unserious. They put in a non-division winner against the division winner for conference championship, so we could end up with a Pac-12 champion that did not win its division in Oregon. Yeesh. Oklahoma at number 10, so we're going to get a top 10 matchup for the Big 12 title. That's going to help Iowa State's case, if nothing else. It certainly would help Oklahoma in securing perhaps a top 5 finish at the end of this thing, depending on how things work out and if they are able to win their 6th Big 12 championship. Little bit of history there. Oklahoma is going for its 50th conference championship since 1915. Iowa State hasn't won a conference championship since 1912. Cincinnati fell a spot. Wow. At 8-0, they fell a spot because they did not play last week. I mean, that's going to, if nothing else, hurt the Americans' feelings, as the American has been stumping really hard for Cincinnati to get into the playoff, even at the expense of making Tulsa look like a patsy in all of this. And Tulsa fans are feeling some kind of way about it. I'm sure the kids are feeling some kind of way about it, as they were robbed of their senior day and the last home game in Tulsa. Now they got to travel to Nippert Stadium to play the Bearcats at home. Yeah, that's gonna be feisty. It's gonna be feisty. I'm really interested in seeing what that looks like, because I think that if Zach Smith shows up and throws for 300 yards, Tulsa's going to win that game, because you're matching up defense versus defense. They're both pretty good, man. Georgia at number 8 with 2 losses. Just the way that they beat down a top 25 Missouri must have weighed heavily in the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's mind. Good season for Eli Drinkwitz, by the way, but now that Georgia seems to have a quarterback, it's a different team. I had a question in the comment section of the chat yesterday. A guy asked me, what I think about a 2-loss Georgia. I said, it feels like you're polishing the fine china as the house is burning down. But I get what you're saying. Florida drops just the 1 spot with the loss to LSU. They're still very much in this, man. Like, they beat Alabama in the conference championship. They could play themselves into that spot. They need Clemson to lose. So they're the biggest Notre Dame fans in the world, like a lot of other people. But I don't know that I would have Florida ranked ahead of Georgia, though Florida did beat Georgia. I get that. But, man, Cincinnati I would have ranked ahead of both of those. So the group of 5 teams are just going to get shafted each and every year, man. That's how it feels. The highest ranked group of 5 team gets D-bid to the New Year's 6 bowls, and right now that's Cincinnati, but taking into account that Cincinnati fell a spot for not having played a game, and Florida only fell one spot for losing to an undermanned and really bad LSU football team. Like, I don't know what else that says except that the committee really values SEC football, which actually leads me to wonder, how would they treat some other teams had they not taken some L's of 3 or 4 against that conference or in that conference? Because, you look at Vanderbilt, you look at Kentucky, you look at the bottom dwellers, South Carolina, of the SEC, and you're going, are they that much better than middling teams in the Big Ten, Pac-12, Big 12? It's an interesting argument, right? Because we know that each one of the committee members comes up with a list of 30, and then they whittle that when they're putting together their own list, and they're voting on which of these teams is ranked where. I don't think that this ranking is reflective of the games that have been played the last few weeks. I think this ranking is reflective of how these folks have felt about these teams, basically from the jump. Because an undefeated Cincinnati ought to be ranked ahead of a 2-loss Georgia, ought to be ranked ahead of a 2-loss Florida. I also think that your eye test is weighing so heavily here that you are eschewing wins and losses. You're just ranking teams based on how you think they should play, what their ceiling might be, not what the results are. I think that the results should be important, but I'm obviously being overruled in all of that. Interesting. Man, I do think that teams should be penalized for losing games, Reese. You should be eliminated from contention if you've lost 3 games. I think you should be eliminated if you've lost 2 games, but obviously I'm being overruled here by the folks that are actually making the rankings. That's just disconcerting, man. Like, what do I tell the kids? That they won every game they played and they're still not good enough? That doesn't, what message is that sending to the kids? Why do we play the games? If you can win every single game you play and still not be considered one of the best to do it, what are we doing? Okay, Alabama's at 1 at 10-0. We all agree on that. Unanimous number 1. We all think that they're going to win the college football playoff national championship. Notre Dame goes into the ACC title game as the number 2 ranked team in the country. They'll face what I think is the number 3 team, Clemson. Go ahead, put it in there. We're all waiting. There's no suspense in this one, dog. Thank you, Clemson at 9-1. Sure, whatever. We got 1-loss team when we got undefeated teams in the top 3. Okay, I can get there because Notre Dame is 10-0. I can get there. I still think that the wins and losses ought to matter. Ohio State at 4. Go ahead. Iowa State at 6. Okay, at 6. At 6. Ooh. If Iowa State's able to get a W against Oklahoma, we might have some drama if Notre Dame knocks off Clemson. Some drama there. We got ampersand U at 5? Is that what we got? Yep. We got Texas A&M 7-1 at 5, Ohio State at 4. Ooh, I like this. So A&M is hoping and praying Iowa State gets beat by Oklahoma and that Notre Dame beats Clemson. They get in. That's what that is right there. There is a path for A&M. There's also a path for Iowa State. Iowa State wins the Big 12 championship. Clemson loses. Ohio State loses. That's it. They're getting in. What has to happen for these 5 and 6 teams to get in is Clemson has to lose. Clemson beats Notre Dame, and Ohio State wins the Big 10 championship. Alabama wins the SEC championship. It's all going to stay the same. I'm interested, man. Okay, now we got a little drama here because Iowa State can have a magic season. It's interesting hearing Matt Campbell talk about that. Wild and awesome. So Notre Dame beats Clemson. We can get the Texas A&M in. We can get Iowa State in. We might even be able to get a Florida in, believe it or not. I doubt it, but they would have to beat Alabama. Florida would have to beat Alabama. The only 2-loss team getting in right now is Iowa State. All they got to do is beat Oklahoma for the first conference championship since 1913, their first Big 12 first chance to win the Big 12 conference championship. Wow, this is awesome. I'm so excited now. Like, I'm going to be watching the Big 12 championship and the ACC championship as much as I'm watching anything at all. You got to expand the playoff here, Galloway. I've been saying it. Like, the church of expanding the playoff has been over here wearing the Show Nuff hoodie for 5 years. 3 years running this channel. You know what I mean? Like, for the last, or 6 years, however long we've had the college football playoff, 2014, 6 years, I have been saying expand this bad boy to 16 teams so that everybody that should get in does get in.